Vidhammer Fantasy.
Welcome back to Vidhammer. This is Spudlow, and in this video we'll be covering a first-round matchup between the Vampire Counts and the Lizardmen at the Darkside Comics tournament in May of 2012. This was a 2,500-point battle line engagement using the 8th edition rules, with a scenario rule that gives any spell irresistible force and a miscast if it rolls a double of whatever turn it currently is. For instance, if it's the third turn, then any spell that rolled double sixes or double threes would have irresistible force and a miscast. Additional victory points are awarded for casting a spell in this additional way, as well as killing off opposing casters. For spell generation, the Vampire Counts have a level 1 Vampire that gets Invocation of Nehek, and a level 2 Necromancer that gets Invocation of Nehek and Van Hell's Dance Macabre. The Lizardmen have a Slann who's a Lore Master with the Lore of Life, and 2 level 1 Skinks that get Ice Shard Blizzard and Uranon's Thunderbolt. The Vampire Counts win the roll for board edge and elect to set up on the left side of the screen. They start with a unit of 12 Direwolves, followed by 40 Saurus Warriors for the Lizardmen, then 5 Blood Knights, 40 Temple Guard, 3 Cairn Wraiths with a Banshee, and 40 more Saurus Warriors. The Vampires finish off their placements with 3 Fellbats, 20 Graveguard, 30 Skeletons, 35 Skeletons with Spears, 10 Black Knights, and finally 10 Ghouls. The Lizardmen's Slann goes with the Temple Guard, and the Skink Priests stand behind the Saurus units. The Vampires put their Necromancer in the large Skeleton unit. The Vampire on a Hellsteed goes with the Ghouls, and a White King BSB goes with the Graveguard. The Vampire Counts start the game, charging the Chameleon Skinks with their Fellbats. The Skinks stand and shoot and take out 2 of the bats on their way in. The Wraiths move towards the blue Skinks, and the rest of the line takes a step up. Winds of Magic and Channeling gives the Vampires 7 power dice against 5 dispel dice. As their only spell, they use 2 dice to attempt Van Hell's Dance Macabre on the Cairn Wraiths, but it gets dispelled by the Slann. With no shooting, they move into close combat, where the Skinks take out the Fellbat before it can attack. The Lizardmen move up their battle line and have the Skinks move around the flank. For magic, the Lizardmen get 8 power dice against 5 dispel dice. They use 3 dice for Throne of Vines, and the Vampire uses all 5 dice to dispel but can't stop it. Next, they use 2 dice to cast Flesh to Stone on the green Saurus Warriors to raise their toughness by 4, and the Skink Priest uses 3 dice to attempt Uranon's Thunderbolt, but the spell fails. For shooting, the lower Skinks shoot for the Direwolves for 2 wounds. On the second turn, the Direwolves turn towards the lower Skinks as the other units move up, with the Black Knights heading for the upper flank. Winds of Magic gives the Vampire Counts 9 power dice against 7 dispel dice. They use 2 dice to cast Van Hell's on the Blood Knights, but it gets dispelled. They move to the shooting phase, where the Banshee's Scream takes out 3 Skinks, and the remaining 2 run for their lives. For the Lizardmen, they move up their battle line as the Skink Priests adjust. The blue Skinks rally as the brown ones move around the Direwolves' flank. Winds of Magic and Channeling gives the Lizardmen 12 power dice against 7 dispel dice. They use 3 dice to attempt Flesh to Stone on the green Saurus, but it gets dispelled, as well as an attempt at Awakening of the Wood. The Lizardmen succeed at casting Shield of Thorns on the green Saurus, and they attempt the Dwellers below, but the spell fails. For shooting, the flanking Skinks take out another Direwolf. On the third turn, the Vampire Counts turn the Direwolves toward the flanking Skinks, the Black Knights and Cairn Wraiths move up, and the rest of the line positions for a charge. For magic, the Vampire Counts get 4 power dice against 2 dispel dice. They use all 4 dice to dispel Throne of Vines. In the shooting phase, the Banshee shoots for the blue Skinks, but fails to wound. The Lizardmen run their skinks like the wind before charging the Black Knights with their blue Saurus warriors while the lower battle line closes in. Winds of Magic gives the Lizardmen 5 power dice against 4 dispel dice, and he actually uses his extra dice for the slam this time. They use 2 dice plus 1 extra to recast Throne of Vines with irresistible force, and they avoid the miscast. Next, they use 2 dice plus 1 extra to cast Flesh to Stone on the Temple Guard. With their final die and 1 extra, they attempt Awakening of the Wood on the Wraiths and get irresistible force, dodging the miscast and putting 5 wounds on the Wraiths. For shooting, the blue skinks miss the direwolves, and the brown skinks take out 4 ghouls. In the first close combat, the Black Knights kill off 3 Saurus warriors. Then the Saurus champion takes out 1 knight. The horses fail to wound, and the Saurus troops take out 2 more knights. The Black Knights lose the combat and 4 more models to crumbling. The Vampire Counts start the 4th turn, charging the flank of the blue Saurus with their skeletons, and the ghouls charge the green Saurus as well. The Cairn Wraiths move to the lower flank as the Blood Knights move up and the Dire Wolves face the Skinks. For magic, the Vampire Counts get 4 power dice against 2 dispel dice. The Vampire casts Invocation of Nehek with irresistible force and brings back 4 ghouls before losing his only spell in the miscast. The Necromancer attempts Van Hell's, but it gets dispelled. For shooting, the Banshee finishes off the blue Skinks. In close combat, the Black Knights fail to wound. The Saurus puts 4 wounds on the skeletons, who in turn wound the Saurus champion and the rank and file models, but they all get saved. The horses miss, and the Saurus get 5 wounds on the knights, who only save 1, and the rest of the knights and 3 skeletons die in the crumbling, as the Saurus reform to face the skeletons. In the lower combat, the vampire and its mount takes out 6 Saurus, and the ghouls get 2 more. The Saurus fail to wound the vampire, but get 4 wounds on the ghouls. The Saurus lose the combat by 2, but remain stubborn and pass their break test. On the Lizardmen turn, the Temple Guard charge the Grave Guard, the Skinks move back to the Direwolf's flank, and the Skink Priests move up. Winds of Magic gives the Lizardmen 8 power dice against 4 dispel dice. They use 2 dice plus 1 to cast Flesh to Stone on the Temple Guard with irresistible force, but they avoid the miscast. The upper Skink Priest casts Uranon's Thunderbolt on the Blood Knights with 4 dice and gets irresistible force, taking out 1 knight and losing the rest of the dice to the miscast. For shooting, the Skinks take out 2 more Direwolves. In the upper close combat, the Saurus champion takes out 2 skeletons, who get 1 Saurus down before losing 8 skeletons to attacks and 11 more to crumbling. In the lower combat, the vampire takes out 4 Saurus, the ghouls fail to wound, and the Saurus put a wound on the vampire and take out 4 ghouls. The lizards win the combat by enough to finish off the ghouls and the vampire in crumbling. In the central combat, the Grave Guard fail to wound. The White King takes out 1, and the Temple Guard kill off the White King and 4 Grave Guard. The lizards win the combat, and 5 more Grave Guard crumble. With the vampire dead, the army takes crumbling tests, losing 1 skeleton from the Necromancer's unit. The Cairn Wraiths die, but the Banshee lives with 1 wound, and the Direwolves lose 5. At the start of the 5th turn, the Vampire Counts take crumbling again, losing 2 skeletons from the Necromancer's unit. The Banshee dies along with 1 Grave Guard and the remaining Direwolves. They charge the Blue Saurus with their Blood Knights, and the skeletons fail to charge the Temple Guard. For magic, the Necromancer gets 7 power dice against 3 dispel dice. They use 6 dice to cast Invocation of Nehek with irresistible force, bringing back 3 Grave Guard and 3 skeletons, and the miscast doesn't wound. In the lower combat, the Grave Guard fail to wound the Temple Guard and take 7 wounds in return, with the remaining models crumbling in resolution. In the upper combat, the Blood Knights take out the unit champion and one Saurus, while the horses miss and the skeletons get one as well. The Saurus take out one Blood Knight and 8 skeletons, with the remaining skeletons and Blood Knights crumbling in combat resolution. They call the game at this point with a victory for the Lizardmen that didn't involve blowing up their slan. Thanks for watching this battle report. Be sure and check back for more videos each week. Do us a favor and subscribe, like the video if you want to see more, and leave us a message if you have any tactics or matchups you'd like to see. Till next time for the Vinhammer crew, keep fighting!